Hello and welcome to the Buckets and Tea NBA show. I'm your host, Cathryn Naiker. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Today, my special guest is comedian, Family Feud audience warm-up extraordinaire. As well, he hosts his own Raptors podcast called the Confederacy of Dunks pod. You can check that out as well. Him and I do a WNBA podcast together called the Pick Up. If any of you are interested in learning more about the WNBA, I highly recommend that. Good old buddy of mine, it's Freddie Rivas. How you doing?
I'm doing good. What's up, Cathryn? Thanks for having me. What's up, Raptors fans?
It's always great to have you. I love always talking about the NBA through my biased Raptors fan lens because, you know, the rest of the NBA media lexicon, you know, they're all Celtics fans, they're all Knicks fans, they're all Lakers fans. You know what I mean? We gotta enter the stratosphere. All we have really, when you think about it, it's the no dunks guys. They're really the only like people in America kind of holding it down for the Raptors when you really break it down. But anyways, and then there's me.
Yeah, then there's you know, standing up for all the Raptors fans.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, with that being said, we got to talk about DeMar DeRozan. He's having obviously a phenomenal season, but particularly a phenomenal week. He has broken a very impressive NBA record this week. He's the first player in NBA history to score 35 points while shooting better than 50% from the field in 7 consecutive games. The last player to do that was Wilt Chamberlain. So obviously this is super impressive, especially the percentage, because I'm sure we were kind of chatting a bit before we started recording. Like, we're sure other players have done that before, like scored over 35 points, 7 consecutive games. It just feels like something Kobe would have done or Jordan would have done. But to do it at over 50% shooting is really kind of what sets it over the top. How did you feel when you first heard that news?
Yeah, just like, you know, similar to how I felt all year, which is happy for DeRozan. He, you know, he's getting his flowers, he's getting his praise, and I think there's a lot of I don't want to say like DeRozan haters, but I think there's a lot of people who've, you know, gotten a lot of mileage out of criticizing DeRozan, you know, fairly endlessly. So I'm enjoying that they have to be quiet this year, and if they're chiming in with well, we'll wait to the playoffs, then my response to that is sort of like, are you having fun though? Like, do you enjoy basketball? Because if you do, you should be enjoying the shit out of DeRozan. And you know, the key point, you hit it, the percentage. And anytime you're in the same conversation as Wilt, it's like a remarkable feat you've accomplished. And on top of that, he's hitting jump shots. He's hitting fadeaways. He's, you know, getting doubled in the clutch and just hitting tough shots. He's before Gary Trent Jr., DeRozan was our like difficult shot taker and our difficult shot maker. So Raptors fans, you know, you're really familiar with this. He spent more time honing his game in San Antonio. He's in a more fortuitous scenario with Chicago. To me, it's all good. It's a great story of someone who has just worked tirelessly their entire career. You know, I remember back in the day, Durant he described DeRozan as the NBA player with the very best footwork in the league. So, you know, that's pretty high praise. Durant's also, you know, giving him his flowers through Twitter right now. So he's a beloved figure. And yeah, it's just fun. Like, I'm really, really happy for DeRozan. And on top of that, he's winning and it's exciting basketball.
Yeah, for anybody listening and not watching this on YouTube, Freddie does have a DeRozan jersey framed behind him.
I certainly do. So the bias is there.
But I think it's like, I mean, I completely agree with everything you said. Like, I think, you know, it was sort of undeniable that DeRozan did have some previous, bad luck. And not a lot of success in the playoffs. I won't say not a lot of success, but you know what I mean? Like there were a lot of moments in the playoffs that he kind of needed to be held accountable for. And then once he got traded to San Antonio, it was like they weren't really a playoff team. So it was hard for him in that environment to truly redeem himself. And so now in Chicago, he's finally had that opportunity. And I think one thing I really admire about DeMar is how he keeps improving his game every single year. Like that was something he did in Toronto relentlessly. And it's like, even though he's like a vet now, you know, he hasn't stopped. He hasn't quit that pursuit, you know, that pursuit of getting better. Like he hasn't kind of been like, oh, well, this is my game, take it or leave it. Like he has continuously worked on his game. I mean, he's not like, oh, I'm going to completely transform my game and suddenly become like a 3-and-D guy, but he does work on his overall game every single year. And now we're really seeing it flourish. And I mean, the Bulls are first in the Eastern Conference right now as we're recording this Thursday, February 17th. And it's just like, yeah, he does deserve these flowers. I think people have generally always liked DeMar, and because like I don't know, because he's from Compton, he just has this like extra cool factor to him that everybody's like, oh man, like you don't mess with that guy. You know what I mean? Like he just has that extra bit of swag to him. And I'm super, super happy for him, just like you. I do think he has something to prove in the playoffs though. And I don't think that's me crossing my arms being like, I'm not impressed. Like I am impressed, but I wish for him that moment to happen to truly settle it once and for all, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And I think, you have to take the good with the bad. He's on a heater right now, but Raptors fans have seen him struggle as the number one option in the playoffs. And I think it's important to remind ourselves that the playoffs and the regular season are completely different. The coaches have ample time to prepare for the number one guy. Raptors fans saw that with Siakam against Boston. And I think your adjustments to that, like there's a lot that goes into adjusting in the playoffs and still succeeding. And I think what happens is sometimes people get scapegoated, and that's my big thing with DeMar. It's not that he didn't show up at certain important times in the playoffs. It's that you can't like throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like it's not all explainable by one thing. And the analytics movement is wonderful. It tells us a lot, but I feel like it allowed a lot of fans to, just kind of dismiss DeRozan as a productive, good player out of hand, which to me is just a major, major overreach because he's a fantastic player. And, I do the Kawhi trade 10 times out of 10, like I think a lot of people, but he's fantastic. And, he does have something to prove in the playoffs. He's only ever been to the conference finals. And, I think that's a thing for players. And I think he has a decent chance of showing up in the playoffs this year, but also the East is pretty competitive. So we'll see what happens with the Bulls. Like they might have a better regular season than playoffs. If I had to if gun to my head right now, I would say the Bulls struggle in the playoffs compared to what they've done in the regular season.
I was going to say, when you're talking about his time at the Raptors, like, it wasn't like he didn't show up in those games. It was just that Casey benched him.
He did. He benched him that Cleveland series, man. It's like, that's what burns in a lot of Raptors fans' minds. It's not because that's why I say you got to take the good and the bad. He also had that in that Bucks series, he had the I got us dunk over Giannis to help win the series. So I think it's that's pretty big. That's in the playoffs. That mattered. But I mean, yeah, he's definitely, I don't know if a Drexler comparison is fair, but there's a lot of guys who played against Michael Jordan and just never won. And I think
that comparison is absolutely fair.
Right? I think he lost to LeBron James. So I think that's significant. He didn't lose to, Paul George over and over and over or something like that,
Um, do you feel that, I feel like there's rumblings of an MVP case for DeMar DeRozan. I was feeling it for a while. And then when they had that regular season game against the Nets in January, that I think was on TNT, and they just got like destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, that's gone. And then, and then the team had some injuries here and there. But I feel like he is, he's not leading the pack, but I do feel like he's making a legitimate case for himself right now.
Yeah, for sure. He's like, this is an interesting question to me because the Kia MVP ladder on NBA.com has 10 candidates, right? So if the conversation is like, is he in that top 10? I think, yeah, he's firmly embedded in like number 8, number 9, something like that. Like I was looking at guys that are just ahead of him, and I think it's not a wild argument that you could put him ahead of like Devin Booker.
Wait, I haven't looked at the list. Who's
Here,
ahead
yeah,
of
I
him?
can rattle it off for you. So the most
Thanks. I
recent
love how
one,
you're my guest, and I'm like, can you pull up all the facts for me?
yeah, we're coming in hard here. Since we're talking about DeRozan, I got to step up, right? So number 10, Jimmy Butler. Number 9, DeMar. Number 8, Booker. Number 6 is Luka, who's tied with Ja for 6, I guess. And then we got 5, Steph, 4, Chris Paul, 3, Giannis, 2, Embiid, and 1, Jokic.
Wow.
So yeah, I think for me, he belongs in that top 10. Sure, you could argue that he's maybe 8th instead of 9th, but you look at a guy like Doncic or Ja, and I just don't see it. I think they're both having substantially better seasons than DeMar, and so I don't really see him as being like a legit, maybe could win the MVP candidate. Although he's like a legit starter in the All-Star game and like having like an All NBA type year.
Yeah, I think the thing that would work in his favor narrative wise, because these are all narrative based awards, really, when you think about it, um, is just that the Bulls do have the first seed in the East.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have it in front of me right now where Dallas is, but I feel like generally they have not performed as well as everybody hoped they would this year. So it's like hard to give the MVP to a guy that isn't like lifting his team over that, I don't know, that threshold, or I don't know. They just seem kind of stuck over the last few years. And I still don't see them being more than a first round team in the West. But also, I'm just kind of biased. Like, honestly, like, I don't think Luka's a bad player or anything, but I do think, I don't know if he's overrated or if just the Mavericks generally are overrated.
Well, yeah, I mean, as someone who doubted Luka during his rookie year, I've really had to walk that back so much that I'm gonna go ahead and say I don't think Luka is overrated. He's I just was
No,
looking
that's
at.
fair. Maybe it's just the Mavericks that are overrated. I think
Well,
people are too high on that team.
and I think they haven't really generated, what it is that makes like Luka win. So like just doing some stat stuff. Luka's got 27, 9, and 9. And DeRozan, I think where was he? I just had him. Yeah, so DeRozan's 28, 5, and 5. And I think that's a pretty substantial lead for Luka statistically. Mind you, I think Luka, his team relies on him a lot more, and DeRozan has more of like kind of like a almost like Spursian, like not every pass is meant to be an assist. So it's kind of like more of a free flowing offense. The Dallas and Chicago records aren't too far apart from one another. So yeah, I mean, if you were making, if you wanted to make the argument that DeRozan is like on the same level as like Luka and Devin Booker, I don't think you're like wholly out of place. Where I would probably say, the conversation needs to just stop is if you're comparing DeRozan to like Ja or Curry, because
Sure.
I think that's kind of the end for him. Like, I don't think he's really having close to those kind of seasons.
No, it's funny because like in our breakdown, I was not planning on having is DeRozan having a better season than Luka debate, but I think it's a fun debate
Here
only
we
in
are.
that just because we're here. And also like my argument would be, just for the sake of it, would be I think you could argue more that DeRozan is making everyone else around him better.
Right. Like what he's doing is resulting in winning more so than
Yeah,
Luka. Yeah,
versus
I
where
think
they were
that's
last
probably
versus
fair.
where Chicago was last year. You know what I mean? Like also, yes, they have Alex Caruso and they have Ball, but like
They're both out.
they're both out. And it's like really DeRozan has been the major factor
Yep.
in this team improving so much, where like Luka, as great of a player as he is, you can't necessarily claim that he's making everybody else around him better. Am I crazy?
Oh, I think we're sort of splitting hairs because I think Luka does make people better around him, but I think I get what you're saying as far as like, I'm a big fan of like equal. No, I'm a big fan of equal opportunity offense, right? Like I think a Steph Curry like setting tons of screens and moving the ball like crazy and doing a bunch is more effective than like a James Harden like stand around and watch me offense. And I think I'm not saying Luka's like full James Harden, but I think he's closer to that than Steph. And I think DeRozan is a little bit closer to like the equal opportunity type stuff. So yeah, I think there's an argument there. I do think from a basic statistical, um, like evaluation, I would give it to Luka. But I mean, well, yeah, again, we'll see how long this scoring torrent goes on. And I think Levine's still out, right? So that's a part of this.
Thank you for supporting me on this journey.
Of course. We got to work it out,
I mean, yeah, it's fine. I just thought it'd be fun if I could see if I could argue it, But
no, DeRozan's the best bull that ever lived. I think it's fair to say that.
Let's break it down. Really, I do think this year's MVP race, I mean, we're obviously we're mid-season, we're about to enter the All-Star break right now, is really going to be between Jokic and Embiid. Like, I think it's really going to come down to these two. They're both having phenomenal years. I'm not really emotionally attached to either of these teams. I think Embiid is going to edge it out. I just have this feeling that Embiid is going to take it. But their numbers and both their records are very comparable. They're almost identical. I just have this feeling that they're just not going to give it to Jokic like 2 years in a row. And I think like this whole Philly thing has just been so crazy. And I think people might want to reward him for playing this well throughout the whole chaos that has surrounded this team and hasn't let any of it get to him. What do you think?
I think you're bang on. It's a narrative award. You have to be incredible to get yourself in the narrative. But once you get to that point, we've seen many times like the whether it's like the Derrick Rose MVP where LeBron should have won. I think like Nash maybe won over Shaq or something, but the Karl Malone over Jordan, and like there's fatigue. We don't want the same player to be the best every year. And I'll even say, I really do think it's a 3-person race. When you look at Giannis's numbers and output this season, he's there. I think he has a better record than either of Jokic or Embiid's teams.
Yeah.
So, which is significant. But I think also narratively, he has it twice. It's kind of like he doesn't care about it, and he's managing himself and trying to go back to back here. And you can tell that Embiid cares about it. And it's sort of like tied to this, like, is this the last culminating, like, journey of the process? Like Ben Simmons is finally gone. There's just one guy left from the whole experience. And we brought in Harden. which I think probably is like signaling, this process is culminated, right? So now is the time for success. And I think that if I had to call it right now, I would say Embiid, just because, he has less assists than Jokic, but his defense is significantly better. So I think that end of the court, when you're kind of like parsing through stats and, the records are pretty similar, is the difference maker. So I think Embiid right now, but I think it's really close, to be honest.
Yeah, I do too. And I think you're right. It's like Giannis is such a unique person that he doesn't get caught up in these things and that he doesn't care about it as much as they do because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, he's just wow, what a special guy Giannis is. You know what I
He
mean?
is.
Like he's just like, I just want my family to be good and my teammates to be good and everybody to be happy. And that's all he kind of cares about. And it's like it's so beautiful to watch. It's almost impossible not to like him, you know? And
Yeah.
I think he isn't in these conversations more because because it's just like you said, it's not who he is. But you know, you got to figure if somehow the Bucks win another title, which is very
Mm-hmm.
much in the realm of possibility because I
Very
do
much.
believe the league is completely wide open.
Yep.
He has to enter like GOAT conversation, doesn't he?
He's already like not GOAT conversation, because that's like sort of disrespectful, but like if there's any player that's on the like the track for like perhaps being in, top 5 all time territory, I would say it is him.
Yeah, like I'm not saying he's suddenly better than Jordan if he wins one more ring, but I mean like he enters a top 5 in a top 10 conversation.
For sure.
It's just he's so incredible.
He's also what so many, I think, like regular fans want. He's a guy who came to a place that was struggling and he
Mm.
stuck there and took them to a championship without creating a super team.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like what everyone kind of hopes. That's what like a guy like Lillard wanted, right? He wanted to be like,
Mm-hmm.
no, screw this super team stuff. Like, I'm just going to stay here and we're going to win it all. And that in recent NBA history, like that's not a thing that's happened. So,
Mm-hmm.
LeBron left, KD left, obviously Steph, right, did that. But, I think Steph, rightfully so, has, he's put himself in that conversation, not GOAT, but like, all time great.
I think so. I mean, I think, for Steph, you just got to look at how much he's influenced and changed the game,
Yes,
right? Like
totally.
it's just, yeah. I mean, that's a whole other conversation that I haven't fully researched. But I really just wanted to talk about who our mid-season MVPs are, and I do think it is between Jokic and Embiid, and I think Embiid will edge it out. But
And
we'll see. Yeah, please go ahead.
can I just say that, just with your Giannis is so charming stuff,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to see like an ultimate Giannis is so lovable video, just Google him at a press conference talking about when he learned to dip Oreos in milk. It's so cute and wholesome and funny, and it's like a nice 2-minute clip, and you're like, this guy is absolutely ferocious on the court, but he's genuinely excited about milk and cookies. So
Yeah, I'm gonna go on a little bit of a tangent here. Obviously, I love Giannis, but I blame guys like Giannis for every guy who has an online dating profile saying how much they love dad jokes. Because it's just,
yes,
as a comedian, this is ruining
it's
everything
insulting.
for me. Because guys are like, "Oh, you're a comedian. Do you want to hear my dad joke?" And I'm like, "No, I don't
And you're
want to
like,
hear
oh,
your joke off the internet. I don't."
you mean bad joke?
Yes,
Is that what you're
yeah,
trying to say? You're going to tell me a bad joke?
every guy is trying to cultivate a nice guy persona with how many bad jokes they have. And I'm like, no. I mean, yes, I want you to be a nice guy, but it's like so funny to me that when guys hear that I'm a comedian, that they want to impress me with their dad jokes, aka bad jokes off the internet. And I'm like, no, I don't want this at all.
I don't know what to say, Cathryn.
I
Except,
might be on an island with that.
well,
There
you're
might
just
just
you're tapping into a deep, deep well of male insecurity. So I mean, it's not your fault, but I'm sorry. You're gonna have to continue to experience that.
Look, between that and DeMar DeRozan's MVP case, I'm on an island alone and I have limited supplies and I might have to find a way off, you know?
Listen, I'll send a flare over. Okay.
Okay, thanks. I'm gonna need all the flares. All right. So let's talk a little bit about this trade deadline that happened last week. Last week, if you didn't get a chance to check it out, I did an episode immediately after the trade deadline with comedian Vong Show, and that was tons of fun. Freddie, are you still drunk or hungover off this trade deadline? I feel like we're still talking about it. It hasn't fully escaped us. It was basically some of the biggest trades we've ever seen, frankly, in league history, certainly mid-season. And I just want to know, like, how are you still shook? Like, how do you feel?
I'm not still shook. I feel like I hosted
Kill my
like,
whole premise.
no, trust me. It's not a yes and, but it is a no but. So follow me here.
Okay.
I'm not hungover because I feel like I had the house party and like a bunch of crazy stuff happened. So I had to like sober up just to like wrap things up.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I feel like right now I've made it to my house is okay. And we're at brunch, a hyper Toronto pod right now, but we're at brunch the next day and I'm not too hungover, but I'm also like, I'm low energy. And I am asking about like, hey, what happened last night, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So really, I butchered your analogy, I think is the end of that story. But yeah, I don't know. A lot of crazy stuff happened. I can't really remember a deadline that was more active. Obviously, you have the giant trade. You know, as a Raptor fan, even seeing CJ McCollum on the Pelicans, that kind of blew me away because it's like, man,
Mm-hmm.
that's significant.
Mm-hmm.
Halliburton to the Pacers, that's massive. Sabonis to, you know, the Kings. Like, I think a lot of big things happen, and even some pretty substantial minor things happen. Like, I think the Bucks put a lot of energy into getting Ibaka. White looks like he's just thriving with the Celtics. You know, you got Harrell in the, you know, going to the Hornets for a playoff push. So there's a lot of it was busy. And I think if you're someone who likes transactions, you shouldn't be complaining. It was a really wild time.
Yeah, I agree. And I just think like you mentioned CJ McCollum, like any other year, that is hands down the biggest trade in a trade deadline
Yep.
season. And here we are with so many other trades that you almost forget that it happened. Sorry, maybe we got frozen there for a sec. All good. But yeah, like it was just so much. I was watching the Ben Simmons press conference today
Mm-hmm.
because I just felt like that would be significant. And I feel like a lot of people are still questioning if he's like lying about his mental health and stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like I'm actually starting to feel bad for him. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily a Ben Simmons, like, sympathizer, but I am starting to feel bad for him at this point because, like, we don't have any evidence to say that he is lying. And people keep pointing out, oh, well, the timeline that the news was released. And it's like, well, that's just the timeline the news was released. That's not the timeline of any actual mental health problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the timeline of you finding out about it. So for me, like, I just don't understand why everybody is so hung up on this. And then it's like people are just like, it's either he has mental health issues or he's a spoiled brat and he's lying. And I feel like nobody's considering the fact that both things can be true. Like he could be a spoiled brat and have mental health issues.
Yeah. To me, one of the most frustrating things about like any kind of like basketball conversation is the fact that I don't know. It seems like it's difficult for the larger public to have multiple truths. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most situations in life have multiple truths. And this is one to me that has many different truths. And I also feel like the mental health conversation around Ben Simmons is totally out of bounds. It, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
is kind of like there's a lot of narrow assumptions of what is a mental health crisis and what someone is going through. When I think, Bell Let's Talk comes around and people are, I mean, this year everyone was like pissed at it, which was kind of funny. But I think, normally we're kind of open to this concept that mental health presents in a lot of different, often unseen or invisible ways. So to me, it's kind of a quantum leap to say, I believe in mental health and respecting people's mental health, but this guy is faking it.
Yeah.
Or he's paid too much and I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are giving themselves permission to like not empathize. And that to me is just like, it's just lazy, and from a basketball perspective, I think it's very exciting. There's a lot going on. I think you can be frustrated at how Ben Simmons like played this out and also not scapegoat him or just like demonize him as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I've been saying this since last year, since they lost to the Hawks. Of course, it was egregious that he wouldn't dunk and he was missing the free throws and, it was bad. He didn't show up and it kind of like it helped tank the team, but he wasn't the only problem. And after, the Doc Rivers and Embiid pressers, I think he was like, okay, well, the two top dogs of this team or this organization, at least from a visible standpoint, just threw me under the bus in like such a massive way
Mm-hmm.
that I'm out of here. And then you got a guy like Morey come in and he's kind of like, he's tough too. So he's like, I don't care if you're quote unquote out of here. I'm not trading you until I get like a massive superstar in return. So it created a pretty toxic situation. So all that to say, when a guy like Ben Simmons says that Philadelphia is a toxic scenario, I think it can be true that it is a toxic scenario for him. Perhaps like, a healthy scenario for Maxey and Matisse Thybulle and Curry and Embiid
Right.
and Harris and whatever. So yeah, a bit of a rant there, but I think people need to relax on trying to assess someone's mental health that they don't know. I think they just need to like put that aside and accept it as an unknown and just dive into basketball because that's all we can see, right?
Mm-hmm. I know. I think you made a lot of excellent points, and like I completely agree with you. And I think Ben Simmons had enough basketball reasons to want out of this situation
Yeah.
that, you know, mental health or not, I think there's enough reasons on paper for this guy to not want to be there anymore. And there are other players that have forced themselves out of
Yeah.
situations simply because they weren't happy in ways that are just as, if not even more egregious than what Ben Simmons did. I mean, look at how James Harden tried to leave Houston. Like
Yeah.
he barely showed up to training camp. He deliberately showed up out of shape. He did not want to be there. You know, it's just that they actually traded him early in that season that actually, you know, we got over it. But
Mm-hmm.
if they didn't, if they held out and were like, we're not happy, and we're not going to trade him for just anybody, we want a superstar in return, we're not interested in rebuilding. I mean, he could have been stuck there for a long time too. I mean, and also like, you know, Anthony Davis, you know, forcing his
Yep.
way out of New Orleans, you know, he basically quit on the team for half a season too. So like there are multiple instances where players have done this and they haven't been demonized the way Ben Simmons has.
Mm-hmm.
And that is also what's making me more sympathetic to him at this point.
Me too.
Also, also too, like I'm not like the biggest First Take fan or anything, but I did watch a clip after this press conference and Stephen A basically went off to say that he felt that Ben Simmons' people did not prep him well enough for this press conference because he's still coming across as a liar. And I actually thought that that was morally or journalistically out of bounds because I was like, you claim to be so well connected with all of these players, you should have some more proof than that. Like, you should have proof. If you're Stephen A, you should have proof that his people did not prep him well enough, because you are connected to those so-called people, right? Like, he's always going on and on about all his sources and how he knows and how he knows. And it's like, well, you should actually know then. And I just think, like, you're saying that you're basically saying he's a liar without any proof, I guess for the sake of debate, because it's a debate show. But it's like, how are you going to do that and then uphold your integrity as a journalist at the same time with these baseless claims? So there's just so much around this that I'm just truly not a fan of.
Yeah,
And
lots of reckless takes.
yeah, and it's just like, it's still going on. I think even once he starts playing again, people are going to continue to debate this for some time. And I was kind of joking last week on our episode that there's like an editor's assistant or an intern that's putting together this 30 for 30 in real time. And
I love that.
And like, it's just going to keep going. I don't I think even though this trade has happened, I think the narrative around Ben Simmons is going to linger for some time. And it's definitely, as an NBA fan, it's interesting to watch, but like, I really, just for his sake, hope that he can kind of end these conversations of doubt around him and move forward.
Me too. I really just want to watch him play again. Like, he's a player I really enjoy. And runner-up defensive player of the year last year. So lots of crazy skill. And I feel like every time this sort of like forcing your way out conversation comes up, I just have to bring up Kevin Love, because it wasn't a long time ago that Kevin Love was like forcing his way out of Cleveland, but they just like, nobody seemed to care. And
yes,
he didn't get traded and he's just still there, but now he's playing good. Anyways, it's really funny to me, his like, because I love the idea that like some players weren't forceful enough, I guess, or rude enough to actually force their way out.
right.
It's just kind of comical to me.
That's so funny, because he was kind of like, he really wanted out. He was really miserable. He was playing, but he was pissed off.
Yeah.
His numbers were going down. He'd really kind of given up. But now that the team is a winning team again, he's been like completely reinvigated.
Yeah, he's been awesome.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah. And I guess he did have enough loyalty to the people there. And like, obviously they're paying him really good money. And it's like, well, it could be worse,
Yeah, and it does make you think about like a situation like Philadelphia, right? Where how untenable was this, and how much responsibility is laid on Ben Simmons, and how much responsibility is laid on the organization, right? You have John Wall not playing all season in Houston. It's not a big deal. They've agreed to something. He's getting paid still. He's not playing at all. So I think there is, it takes two to tango, right? So I think there's a lot we don't know, and that's why I kind of like hold off like mental health stuff. But just like back to the trade and like madness for a second, I'm just so excited to see Ben Simmons on the Nets. I think it's going to be amazing. I'm so excited to see Harden on the Sixers. Like, how's the spacing going to work? Is Harden going to acquiesce to Embiid? There's just lots of fun kind of like.
Is the first time we're going to see Harden in a Philadelphia jersey, the All-Star game?
Maybe.
I think so.
Right?
I think he will debut in a 76ers jersey at the All-Star game.
That's incredible. Like, and then obviously the next level of petty. I don't know if you saw the and a Harden's a guy I feel sorry for a little bit too sometimes, because people like to make fun of him, and that hurts at the end of the day. Like, if the whole world is kind of like taking jabs, but
I don't feel sorry for him yet.
Fair enough. But Durant and LeBron, did you see this when they were picking?
Oh yeah, what a class!
Like,
that happened like just after we recorded last week's episode. Oh my god, what a classic!
Laughing. It's good stuff.
The clipboard in front of LeBron's face. First of all, just the fact that LeBron even has a clipboard is incredible. Like
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
his
exactly.
annual clipboard. Like, I don't think LeBron James ever holds a clipboard under any other occasion,
No.
but it's just his annual like clipboard time. See, this is why I love LeBron, because him and I are the same age, and I also might prefer it on a clipboard than like on a laptop or an
Oh,
iPad,
for sure.
and then he's going through the list, he's giving it a lot of thought, and then Kevin Durant's just there all stoic, trying not to laugh, trying not to have any emotion or personality whatsoever based on what happened earlier in the day. I think this is the third consecutive All-Star game that Durant's missing due to injury,
I think so. Yeah.
which is
Yeah, I mean,
wild.
he's we've missed a lot of this part of his career because of injury. It sucks.
Mhm. But I guess it'll be easier for Harden to show up in a Sixers jersey without Durant there. Um
For sure. It's gonna be
Wild,
hilarious.
wild stuff. I'm really looking forward to All-Star weekend this year. I didn't ask you this, Freddie, but is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I haven't looked into it too much, but I'm pretty jazzed for this like new format on Friday. There's like a
Mm.
whole new G League incorporate, like there's like 4 different teams, and there's sort of like a playoff, like when it goes on type thing. I mean, I'm totally butchering it. I got to look into it, but yeah, on Friday night for the rookie sophomore thing, it's kind of a different format and it looked cool.
Awesome. With that, let's move on to our Raptors Homer moment. Finally. So yeah, we have Jarrett Allen in the All-Star game instead of Pascal Siakam. We talked a little bit about this on your pod, the Confederacy of Dunks. But yeah, a lot of people feel slighted for Siakam. I
Hmm.
personally think, even though Jarrett Allen's numbers might not be quite as good currently, he's also having a great season. Cleveland's having a great season.
Hmm.
It's in Cleveland.
Yes.
So I kind of get why this choice was made. I don't know if you feel slighted at all or not.
I don't. I think I was like maybe 20% slighted when
Mm.
this all started, and I think I'm kind of like down to like 0% slighted. Jared Allen has had a great year. He deserves this. So I think, does he deserve it over Siakam? I think it's pretty tight. There's a debate to go either way, but the fact that it's that tight, and I think this is where a lot of Raptors fans would disagree. They would say it's actually not that tight. But yeah, I just, Jared Allen's having an incredible year. Like I was checking out, even his statistics, right? Like, just by like fantasy basketball standards, he's actually ranked higher than Pascal this year.
Mm.
So, 16 points, 11 boards, and a block and a half is like pretty significant. Like he's not Gobert out there, but he's having an amazing year. And I also kind of fall back to this idea that does any 7th or 8th or ninth place or 6th place team really deserve 2 All-Stars? Like, or I mean, is it
Yeah.
egregious if they don't have 2 All-Stars? And
Yeah.
I think my answer is no. Like if you're not one of the best records in the NBA, it's, I don't know, the complaining seems a little bit not like self-aware.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, what also kind of hurt Siakam was just like he was injured to start the season, and then it took him a few weeks to really get going once he came back. So it's really only in the last 6 to 8 weeks that he's been playing at that all-star level. Whereas Jared Allen's been doing it for the full season. So I think that's also a major factor in it as well.
Yeah, and I'll say this in Pascal's defense. We were talking about narrative before, and I think
Yeah.
like an unfortunately negative part of his narrative is this interpretation that he like was totally bad last year. So like check this out. Last year, 21 points, 7 rebounds, and 4.5 assists on like a worse effective field goal percentage than he had. Like it was under 50%, but like not bad. So I think part of it is that folks sort of decided that he was a total bust last year, and that's not true.
Mhm. No,
So
I completely agree. Like I think, obviously like the whole Tampa situation is like I'm gonna do my best to block it out of my memory. Like I don't
yeah,
even want to remember that season.
Wire
As
season 2.
Yeah, it's the Wire season 2.
Important things happened, but a lot of characters and storylines that kind of sucked.
Oh, that's such a good reference. Although, I'm one of those like, hey, season 2 was really important, blah 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 kind
Oh,
of
you
people.
like the docs? Okay,
I
fair
don't
enough.
like the docs, but they are an important part of the story.
Right? So is Tampa.
So what's Tampa? Oh god. I hate Tampa so much. But yeah, I think you're right. I think he has kind of an unfair negative narrative, not reputation, that's too strong, but unfair negative narrative
Mhm.
around him. But hopefully the rest of the season will be him smashing that to pieces. So
Yes.
I look forward to that. And also I wanted to ask you, now that the Raptors have this well-deserved, well-earned break, minus Fred VanVleet.
Mhm.
Uh, what do you think the Raptors like homework should be? What do you think we should be working on or thinking about over this break for the rest of the regular season?
Uh Zones, like zones and more zones. I forget the I think Portland with that really bad loss to Portland might have been the first game that I clued in. I'm sure it was happening before, but that we were getting zoned really hard. And that seems to be the going idea in terms of stopping the Raptors. Obviously, when you don't have Fred on the court, who's one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. By the way, also excited to see him in the 3-point contest. But
Mm-hmm.
and Scotty in the skills.
Mm-hmm.
And Precious in the rookie. Okay.
There we go.
Um, got them all, right? Got them all. But yeah, I think like how they operate in the zone and how they kind of like stop the bleeding is going to be key, because obviously Gary and Fred can hit some threes, but you're going to need, Thaddeus in the middle, catching the ball and distributing it. You're going to need, Precious and Boucher to hit some corner threes. You're going to need Pascal to just kind of like make hay in the paint, which he has been. So I think that's sort of like what we're going to have to deal with. We didn't get a shooter at the deadline. It doesn't seem like any of the potential shooters like, Utah or, Champagne or Flynn or Svi, definitely not Svi. It seems like none of those guys are going to factor in to be like a major, like 15 minutes every night guy in the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
So then I think that leaves you with this like hyper funky lineup, which is fun on defense and in the fast break. But as you build towards the playoffs, where there's notoriously, way less fast breaking, you're going to have to figure out how to operate efficiently in the half court. And yeah, I think teams are only going to zone us more and more and more unless we can consistently beat it.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And The Athletic wrote a really cool article about the Raptors half court offense, if anybody wants to check that out. I completely agree. I think for me, my answer would be we need to figure out who our 8-man rotation is. Like I think we need to give, and there's been a lot of talk about, Nick Nurse only playing like 6, 7 guys
Mm-hmm.
to try and win games. And, over the last week, I have noticed he's playing more and more
Yes.
people.
Yeah.
I think, he's got to figure out like, the top 6 is very clear. And we need to figure out who is that number 7 and who is that number 8 that we're going to ride with into the playoffs. Because I think like, you know, 6, 7 people, it's not sustainable, especially in a playoff series. I think, and it looks like, right now we're currently 7th, but we were 6th last week. And I think we are definitely going to be in the play in. We might even skip the play in and be in a playoff series. I
Mm-hmm.
think we got to figure out who that rotation is and then get them more and more comfortable in more reps and more rotations that way, rather than just being like, oh, what does Malachi have tonight? Or what does Utah have
Yeah.
tonight? Hi, everyone. So we got cut off for a sec there, but we're back. And just to wrap up what we were talking about there, Freddie, I was talking about how I feel the Raptors need to think about who our 8-man rotation is and try to finalize that and hone that in before the playoffs. Was there anything else you wanted to add to your thoughts?
Yeah, just kind of like jumping at a point you were saying earlier, Nurse has played more than like 7 or 8 guys recently. So I think, I was looking at the last like 3 games yesterday, and each game had like 9 or 10 guys playing some minutes of significance. Like I know one of them was a New Orleans blowout, but in that game, 14 guys played. So that kind of checks out. But, and I think a part of it is Fred not being there. But even in the Nuggets game, more guys played. So, yeah, I feel like with Thaddeus here, he's going to kind of like inject himself into the lineup without fully subtracting. Like I think that's permission for Nurse to not use 7 or 8 guys. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see a battle between Precious, Boucher, Birch, Thaddeus, and then like a roving 10th guy, I guess, whether that's like Utah V, Champagne, or Flynn. Flynn's had some fourth quarter minutes past it a while, and I'm not even mentioning Banton. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. With that, let's move on to our Hot Girl Summer Nick Nurse highlight of the week. Nick Nurse went to his Instagram to post about a thing called Noah Basketball, NOAH. And I don't even know what to call it. It's a thing, it's a piece of technology that analyzes the way you shoot a basketball. And Nick claims that he has used this to help with some of the players improve upon their shot. He didn't name anyone specific, but he was like, yeah, like we were able to use this and see that, oh, this person was struggling with their shot, but they had a 41-degree angle instead of a 45-degree angle. And this was, this piece of technology was able to help us see that. So now this little video seems like a bit of a commercial for it. I don't know who needs this. It's pretty niche. But I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. And I feel like it's appropriate for the Raptors or Nick or any ambassador of the Raptors to be promoting something like that. Cause like, I think it's Chip England, the San Antonio Spurs, like shot doctor, was like the main guy around the NBA for a really long time. Obviously with, Kawhi and other players, like he kind of taught them how to shoot, but we have Pascal, and I think OG could kind of shoot in college, but I mean, college is always so hard to transfer over. But yeah, we have legit a lot of guys who have become top level shooters. Kyle Lowry probably is the biggest one. When his time as a Raptor, he became one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. So, I mean, the proof is there. We'll see how it goes the next couple of years with guys like Scotty, Precious, Banton. This guy is a guy where I'm like, man, if he can cobble together any kind of consistent shot, that totally changes everything for him. So yeah, I mean, that's a good Homer moment. They're propping up their own brand.
I love it. Freddie, thank you so much for joining me, for dealing with our technical difficulties, for coming back, for helping me finish out this episode. Tell us, where can people find you on the internets?
First of all, anytime, always happy to make it work. This is a great pod and you're awesome. But yeah, you can find me at Freddie Rivas on Twitter, at Freddie Noel Rivas on Insta. On my podcast is Confederacy of Dunks basketball podcast. We're Raptors /NBA pod, dunkspodcast.com. And, Cathryn already mentioned it, but check out Buckets and Tea for sure. We're having a great time getting to know the NBA. We just did our 14th episode. So, yeah, support. We're happy to be doing something kind of cool.
Yes, you just said the name. Freddie, I love you so much. You just said the name of this pod.
I did. I said Buckets and Tea when I was trying to say WNBA, the pickup. Nice catch. You're already listening to this pod. I mean, listen to it again, sure, but thanks,
Thank you so much, Freddie. You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at itsme_Cathryn, spelled Cathryn. Thanks again, and happy All-Star weekend, everybody. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.